By now, you've probably heard me raving about Osea. I'm obsessed with their Mega Moisture Duo, and I even caught my partner using it the other day because he smelled like seaweed. Now that's hot, right? You know who else would love Osea? Your mom, or your friends that are moms, or if you're a mom, because being a mom is hard work, and I think all moms deserve a spa day this Mother's Day. And what better way to make every day a spa day than with Osea's Mega Moisture Duo? And right now, you can even get an additional 10% off your first order with our code DATEABLE at OseaMalibu.com. Treat moms to the everyday spa experience she deserves with clean, vegan skin and body care from Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DATEABLE at OseaMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. Head to OSEAMalibu.com and use the code DATEABLE for 10% off.
The Dateable podcast features real stories from real people of how they make modern dating work, or not. I'm your host, Yue, former dating coach turned dating insider, if you will. On each episode, you'll hear commentary from my producer, Julie Kraftchick, and other surprise co-hosts. This episode of Dateable is brought to you by 500 Brunches. 500 Brunches connects like-minded people with similar interests to meet in real life over brunch. You answer a quick questionnaire about your interests and how you spend your time, and then they'll match you in small groups of 6 to 8 at a brunch spot in San Francisco. Get a free entry into a brunch now by signing up at 500brunches.com and using the code DATEABLE. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating. And I believe that it doesn't get any more modern than the topic today. So I have 3 guests with me, Jupiter, Dylan, and Sean. Jupiter and Dylan are with me in the studio, and we have Sean on the phone. If you guys want to give a quick hello.
Hello. Thank you for inviting us to your lovely appointed dojo.
Thanks for having me call in. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We're pretty excited would be a word, but also intrigued by this sort of non-traditional relationship. And we've had people talk about, open relationships and polyamory, but you 3 are the first to talk about this idea of a triad relationship, which Julie and I thought were called tripod relationships. Are we totally wrong? Because Julie's like, I keep Googling tripod, and it's like the camera tripod that keeps coming up. It's a triad. So I'm like, is it like a gang of sorts? So
it's pretty much a gang.
It's pretty much a syndicated organized crime throughout
I want to give a little background on our guest. Sean here has been in San Francisco for 12 years, originally from Ventura City. He's in his early 30s, and he says he's engaged in many poly relationships. Jupiter is originally from the Bay Area, and she's been in San Francisco specifically for 1.5 years. She's in her mid-20s, and she's in a V-shaped triad. She's going to talk about this V-shaped triad. We're going to get to that. I don't know. I didn't know there were
currently in other multiple polyamorous relationships.
Okay, awesome. I didn't know there were other shapes of triad relationships. So I want to get to the O's and the N's and the Z's. And Dylan here is he's been in San Francisco for 14 years, but you're originally from San Francisco. So
I am.
You have already been here for
longer than that, because I'm not 14 years old. You're so good at
Thanks for clarifying.
You could be.
I took a kind of a long break from the Bay Area. I did some traveling in the UK, Southeast Asia, South America, and just kind of farted around for a while. And I recently came back about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, come a little closer. We want to
Hello.
hear you.
It's just because you don't want to touch me.
I've never been to an orgy, but I would say this is the closest I've ever been to an orgy.
I can take you to some parties.
Ironically, this is about the furthest I've ever been from an orgy.
Wait, Dylan and I actually met at an orgy.
Oh, so this is getting so
segue,
good.
Yeah.
So I have to tell everybody Dylan's age. He's 29, and he's openly exploring other relationships. Okay, so we're talking about a triad relationship. What does that mean? Who wants to define that for us?
I'm going to defer to you.
Do you want me to go? Because I'm a bit of a polylexicon because I do a lot of poly events and I love this stuff. So triad pretty much just means 3 people in some sort of relationship engagement. There's a lot of different shapes. Like people, I think traditionally think of a triad as being like a triangle where all the points connect. But a triad can really be a lot of different other things, and we happen to have been in a V-shaped triad. It's V because there's like a pivot point person, and so that pivot point person was me. Like I was in a relationship with Sean, and then I met Dylan, and we also became in a relationship. And the difference between just like a normal and I'm dating 2 people is we actually, the 3 of us, did have a close relationship. Just Sean and Dylan weren't dating each other, and though I would say that it was. We'll get into this more, but though it wasn't like a sexual relationship, there was some bromance there for sure.
That was hyper romantic.
Hyper romantic.
And instead of fucking each other, we just high-fived a lot.
Wall fucking me.
Wait. Back up. So before we get to the fucking, let's talk about how we got there, which is you and Sean started dating first. How did you guys meet?
Jupiter and I traveled in the same circles, a pretty sexually and relationship open circle in San Francisco, and so we knew of each other for some time. And I think we first had a little bit of a spark fly at a festival that we went to together, Lightning in a Bottle. And we had both been coming out of relationships where we were intentionally poly in those relationships, but I think our partners weren't as fully on board with being poly, and so it created a bit of a strain in our relationships where we wanted to allow our partner to have complete freedom. We wanted our partner to allow us to have complete freedom, but I think we hadn't experienced really what like a fully true non-hierarchical poly relationship could be. And when we met each other, we saw that each other had the same intention that we saw that we each had in ourselves, and we also were attracted to each other. So it was just like the perfect foundation for us experimenting with like a really well thought out poly relationship, and like from the ground up, us meeting each other eye to eye and being very communicative and building a relationship from there.
And then Jupiter, how long were you guys dating before you met Dylan?
So I guess we'd been dating, I think, right around 6 months, or like 5.5, 6 months was when I first met Dylan.
And then how did you guys meet?
Jupiter and I met at a play party here in San Francisco.
A sex party, for those who are
Was
not.
it Ben and Kate's sex party?
It was one of Ben and Kate's sex parties.
Yeah, Ben and Kate.
Yeah, call back.
And I was there with Sean. Sean and I were both there at that party.
Okay.
I was, I'm going to say, loosely initiated in the sort of play party scene, and we, before we met, had several mutual friends. I was pretty uninitiated with the dynamics of polyamory and how those sort of open relationships functioned, especially in a sort of play party environment. And so Jupiter and I hit it off immediately, started hooking up, and then like Sean walked in and I was like, oh shit, I'm in deep trouble right now.
But
and
you
was
weren't.
Like, no, she was like, no, this is fine. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I guess in kind of a very basic and crude way, kind of kicked off a series of like discoveries for me about what I wanted in dynamics with sexual partners, what I wanted in relationships, and how I just sort of wanted to treat dating in general. So that was definitely a door knocked down.
So Jupiter, when you and Sean are in this relationship, were you guys labeling each other as like boyfriend, girlfriend, or primaries? What was it?
So we were using the terms partner. At the time, we were both using the terms boyfriend and girlfriend also. For us, they were very interchangeable. I don't always use those terms as interchangeably. Like, I don't think Dylan and I ever referred to each other as boyfriend and girlfriend. I think we only ever call each other partners.
Right.
That was like a specific choice we made that like felt right for ours. With Dylan, with Sean and I, it was like, whatever, yeah, you're my boyfriend, my partner, whatever. Yeah, Sean and I both subscribe to, and Dylan also, we all subscribe to non-hierarchical polyamory, which specifically eliminates things like primary, secondary, things like that. Any system that like creates an implicit, like someone has a status that is fixed or like takes priority over anyone else. So we didn't ever give anything like that, which was part of kind of honestly what made space for Dylan to come into my life, was the fact that we didn't have, I believe actually on Dylan on my first date, he's like, so like Sean's like your primary. I was like, whoa, I don't do that. We went into my whole spiel, and I think he was like swooning a little bit.
So if you and so Dylan and Sean did not have a sexual relationship, correct?
Right.
Okay, so what is the difference then? Can you explain this a little further of what makes you guys a triad couple between the three of you versus just you being partners with the two of them?
Yeah. So for me, like, I feel like sexuality is only one aspect of connection and relationships. And I would almost say that Dylan and Sean, between them, have pretty much they love each other.
Okay.
Dylan and Sean
Whoa. Sean loves me.
What do you have to say about that, Sean? Do you love Dylan?
Yes, I love Dylan. Was that the question? I think initially I wasn't sure if Dylan's appearance in the scene among Jupiter and I how that would affect Jupiter and my relationship. And initially I feared that I would lose time that I had previously been able to spend with Jupiter. It wasn't, when they developed their relationship, it wasn't anger or jealousy or upset at Jupiter or at Dylan, but I did have to go through some processing to think of, okay, how is it, like, the time that I've currently set up to be spending with Jupiter, how's that going to be affected? Because now, she has, they need to allocate their time with another person. But the way it turned out is that Dylan and I ended up actually really enjoying spending time together. And so how it ended up happening is all three of us would actually hang out together and spend the night together and have sex together, in our own configurations, but in the same bed, and would help each other, please each other, and so that's
configuration, Sean?
Yeah, please explain more.
Wait, so just to answer Julie's question, that's what makes you guys a triad relationship versus a polyamorous relationship, because the three of you guys hung out
a lot.
Yeah.
We became very close.
And you almost had a relationship, it just wasn't sexual.
Right. I think Sean and I developed a very deep and intimate friendship, and one that is unlike any that I think I've had with anyone else. And I think there is a mutual understanding of the shared intimacy with another. And I think that sort of creates a very deep connection with another person. Just something that I thought was so inspiring when I sort of began my relationship, both with Jupiter and with Sean, kind of respectively, was Sean approached it in such a healthy and open way, and discussed it in terms of the two of us being on a team together, with our mutual goal being to make Jupiter happy. And I thought that was just one of the most touching and unbelievably just human things that I had experienced thus far. And that was really, really inspiring, and really kind of drove me to try and incorporate that kind of thinking into my own life.
Now, from my understanding, Jupiter, you were the connector of this relationship. Did you, Sean and Dylan, did you guys ever hang out without Jupiter's presence?
Oh yeah, definitely.
The first time
I think we preferred it that way.
They went on a trip together, actually. From the first time the three of us had a group date, the very first time, we all sat down, and I was very nervous, and I'm they were both hey, how you doing? I'm I just really want you two to become best friends. And very quickly they did share a little kiss at the end of our goodbye, and I was oh, good Lord, save me. And that's all I ever wanted. I loved these two people, and I wanted them to find see that mutual love in each other.
And Jupiter did a terrific job of kind of facilitating that and creating a space where there wasn't really any pressure or expectation on Sean or I to develop any kind of relationship, but it was healthily encouraged and definitely well fostered. So
when guys hang out together, I'm just thinking about without the presence of their girlfriend, they're usually out like looking for girls or hitting on girls. Did you guys do that?
Oh,
when you
constantly.
hung out? Okay, interesting. Okay.
With no hesitation or reservation whatsoever. Yeah.
And I would ask for updates while they were doing
Right.
this.
Fascinating.
They were at South by Southwest at the same time together, and I was getting
forgot
photos
about
of
that.
them doing various things together. I was like, I don't care what y'all are doing, just can I get a photo of some butts? And very quickly to my phone, I got a picture of both their butts in a bathroom, and I was like,
my
yes.
God.
I was like, great, go back to what you're doing, guys.
So it's there's no jealousy at all in any of this?
It's kind of bizarre. Like I have experienced jealousy in relationships previously, but I don't know that I ever experienced it in this dynamic with these two people.
Why do you think that is?
Just because of how open and communicative and just abundantly loving they both are. Like I don't know that. I think jealousy primarily stems from a sense of insecurity, and there was just between the three of us there was no like room for insecurity because there was just such an abundance of love and adoration between the three of us, and it kind of it almost multiplied on itself.
We often described that, you know, there was relationships between myself and Sean, myself and Dylan, Dylan and Sean, and then there was this other relationship that was the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that relationship, while all of our relationships, I think we all put a lot of work into having healthy relationships, having good communication, there was something about our specific dynamic of the three of us that was probably the healthiest of them all. There was something so, like, to use a buzzword, synergistic about all of us together.
Yuck.
Oh, I know. I'm techie skull.
How long have you been in the corporate world?
3 months.
And then Jupiter, were you out dating other men as well?
It just so happened, like, while I was dating Sean Dillon, wasn't happening to date anyone else. Like, I was totally free to. It was mostly like having the two of them and having a full-time job and having hobbies.
Yeah.
I kind of was out of time. Like, it's the biggest thing that always comes up.
So here's the biggest question. You talked about it. It's timing, scheduling, guys. I mean, we were talking to a friend last week and he said, oh, I asked this girl out on a date and she said she's not available till April. And that's just like trying to date one person. How do you find the time to date multiple people?
Did they ask this woman that was unavailable till
Last
April?
week.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm not that busy. So I will say, I've said it once, I'll say it again.
I feel like that's just
Google
no. That's a no. If someone says I'm busy till April, that's like I don't
Oh,
want to
yeah,
see
yeah,
you.
definitely.
I use Google Calendar for one thing nowadays, though. A big thing for me, at least, so that this was part of, like, honestly why a triad really worked for the three of us. Like, I had a full-time job. Dylan, you know, works down south, and so between full-time job and then commuting.
Is that a euphemism?
Oh.
That was his full-time job.
He's got 2 full-time jobs.
Pleasing Jupiter. Yeah. I love it. It's like, we just wanted to please and love Jupiter.
I know. Where can I find my harem of men? Jeez.
I've got friends.
But for the, you know.
Google Calendar.
Yeah, Google Calendar. But for the three of us, like, when I was, for a while, Sean and I were the only ones just seeing each other, like, consistently. And that was a lot easier to time. Sean had some more flexibility in schedule at the time. Now we're all even busier than when we were all seeing each other. But it was kind of easy to be like, hey, like, I can try to keep splitting my time hanging out with you, but that gets to, can we just, like,
all
hang out together?
Yeah.
And, like, slowly that became more and more of a thing where I'm someone who can be really fulfilled by group hangouts.
Mhm.
Like, I still want some one-on-one time, but, like, I'm actually, and I think, Sean, can you speak to this? Because I remember us talking about this when we were still seeing each other about this.
Yeah, for me, this was the first relationship that I had where I had, however you define the term, an intimate relationship with a man with some masculine energy. And so what that meant is that when we all hung out, I got this interesting balance, and Jupiter's got their own unique mix of masculine and feminine, and Dylan brought this masculine energy, which I just hadn't had in a relationship before, which was actually really, really amazing. Can you imagine the situation where you get to, like, hang out with a guy who, like, you're getting to know like a best friend, and you're hanging out with your girlfriend, like, at the same time? Like, it was
Sean,
like
I just want you to know I'm
Miami.
weeping from every orifice right now.
I mean, I get it. Totally makes sense. Like the way you're saying it, like
I
people
just-
always never have time for like friends and relationships.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah,
But
like
I'm-
do it all at once.
But it's also your friend. It's also fucking your girlfriend. That's the difference here.
But
Okay,
he was- yeah.
I'm curious about the configurations now. Let's talk about logistics and configurations. How does this work? Let's just go PG first. When you go on a date, what does that look like? Who picks a spot? Who's planning the dates?
I just not
I think
any.
we all took turns.
It's not any different
Or-
from when you're planning with platonic friends.
So I'll say for our second date, I'm maybe you've both heard of Hump, the film festival. That's like the
No.
amateur.
Please,
Oh my god, you have to go! It's in January. It's the amateur porn film festival they show at the Victoria Theater.
Amazing.
okay.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's run by Dan Savage. It's super.
Oh, I
cool.
love Dan Savage.
Yeah.
But you're watching porn in public
It's
with other
amateur,
people?
so it's in a theater. It's amateur.
you
porn.
say that like that's weird.
We have a good story from that.
We do. So we have a good story.
Oh,
So-
shit.
Uh,
I'm worried because I don't remember what it is.
oh, it's okay. It's not that bad.
All right.
We for that I had been like, oh, I really want to go. I'd gone the year before, and I realized I'm like, oh, like I've talked with Sean, and I really wanted to do this with him, and I was like, oh, I think I really want to bring Dylan too, and I just got overwhelmed with like, oh my god, I don't know if this is the first time I've had to like pick who to take, so I just bought 3 tickets, and I didn't ask either of them before I did it, and then I like messaged them both, or like I talked to them both. I was like, hey, so I should have asked before, but like I'm really sorry. I don't want you to like feel like I wasn't picking you, but like I bought tickets for all of us to go. If it's a problem, I can like, and they were all like, that's so sweet that you want us all to go. Like, great. I was like, wait, this is the best thing ever. And so I got to bring both of them as my first like public let's go out date. And so we went to see via my
Let's not pretend that you weren't peacocking super hard too. Just be like,
Oh, I was peacocking
I
super
happen to bring 2 dudes.
Oh no, are you kidding? So we got into the theater and I was like so proud. And at one point there's like people behind us and someone made a comment. I turned around with my hand on each of their shoulders and I'm like, I came with 2 dates. And this is like we had a bunch of friends join us, and there was another guy who I've seen. and
That's when I
has-
cringed so hard that my face actually folded in on
Yeah,
itself.
how did
So
this
you
make
guys
you
had
guys
no
feel?
reaction. What
Yeah,
was your
how did you
reaction?
feel?
I mean, it was still pretty new to me at that point, and so
We've been seeing each other less than a month, I think.
yeah,
Okay.
easily.
And you hadn't really had these relationships prior.
I had been in situations where me and somebody else were seeing the same person, but it was never that kind of
Like together, all
right.
3
You know,
of
it
you.
was never there was never a group dynamic. It was like we're just gonna pretend that neither one of us knows about this.
Where this is the opposite. It's like out in the open.
And so that was very jarring for me, and it took I'm gonna say several months to kind of get fully acclimated to that kind of social dynamic, but it was fine. It was definitely an interesting experience, and even at the time when I was I'm gonna say, I don't know, mildly uncomfortable, I was still able to laugh at it because it's just so ridiculous. It's ridiculous in the sense that it's like I understand that it's totally kind of outlandish in sort of the conventional viewpoint, but I also understand that it's completely preposterous that like people have an inclination to do this sort of thing and are restrained by either their own self-consciousness or societal pressures to just live the Disney fairy tale.
Go with whatever makes you feel good.
I'm just thinking about like more conventional relationships. Like a month in, if someone was like, "Hey, I'm gonna bring another girl on the date with me," I'd be like, "What the fuck?" Like that's the reaction. So it's so interesting that it was like not that.
Whereas
reaction.
they were like, so I was really worried that like I might hurt Sean's feelings because this is something we talked about wanting to do, and Sean was like, "That's really sweet. I'm totally down for that." I was like, you're awesome. I'm spoiled as shit right now.
Let's go into it quickly
unquestionably.
in your history. So Dylan, you've never been in a triad before this one.
Right.
Not a fully known triad, I guess. Jupiter, have you?
No.
Okay. And then Sean, have you been in a triad before this one?
No, this is the first.
Oh, so this is first for everyone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's hard to
My
find.
first triad.
My first try.
And you guys,
It sounds like a children's book.
you guys currently today are not dating each other.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say that maybe Dylan and Sean are the closest. They're
still together.
Well, last time I hung out with Sean, he's like, "Yeah, I hung out with Dylan. We went to Banya." I'm like,
Bonnie's a Russian bathhouse.
I've been
Yeah,
there
Russia-
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
Acquainted,
so they went to the bathhouse together on a like one-on-one date, and I'm like, "What the fuck didn't you invite me?" And they're like, "This was a just us thing." I'm like, "Well, I see that you two are still seeing each other."
So would you guys do triads again? Would you be open to it?
Oh, for sure. But I mean, it's so heavily dependent on
Yeah.
the people involved.
Right.
Yes.
We
Right?
couldn't
yeah.
have forced this. I think it was sheer luck and like it just so happened we all clicked. Like I wasn't positive when I first introduced them all because, you know, Dylan and Sean turned out to have like a really great, you know, chemistry personality wise, but like I would say Dylan and Sean are like fairly different in very specific ways.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like they're very different people in terms of just a lot of ways they relate to people, but they happen to both just be really big-hearted, genuine, open, honest people.
And they want to please you, more importantly. So logistically, I want to go back to logistics again. For a time where you were invited to a party, you only had a +1, like a wedding or something like that, and you had to choose between
Funny
the two of them.
story.
Funny.
I want to hear.
So, funnier story, even this is actually after I'd officially stopped dating both Dylan and Sean, but I was a bridesmaid in a wedding in July.
There you go.
But I was obviously invited months and months and months before. And my friend knows, this is like one of my oldest friends, and she knows that I'm poly. And she called me up on the phone like last fall to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna like," and I was like, "Oh my God, you're getting married! I'm freaking out! I'm crying!" And she's like, "I want you to be a bridesmaid at my wedding." I'm like, "Of course I will." And she's like, "And I know you're poly, so you can bring 2 dates." That's what I got. My best friend getting the one being married. And
That's
so
incredible.
yeah, at the time I hadn't met Dylan. Then like obviously I was like, "Sean, will you be my date to this wedding?" And then
she very slyly pocketed that extra invitation. It was like, one day I'll find my +2.
yeah, I always knew. Like, I had someone I had in my back pocket just in case I needed to invite. That I knew. You know who it is, Sean. It's our very, very bisexual porn star friend.
Oh, she should have given you 5 dates.
I know. I was like, I can take as many dates as you need now.
Table with
yeah.
just Jupiter and all your dates at the wedding.
Please.
I started calling them that. It's like Jupiter and their moons, right?
Yeah, I like that.
They're just orbit
Over
around.
planet.
That sounds like a rock band or something.
Or a porn. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You know what's funny is when I first met Jupiter, I asked her if she was named after the relative size of her ego.
Oh, and
It's
that's what
not.
you were attracted to.
It is what you're starting to but so what happened was, even though we'd stopped dating, we all kept really good relationships. I was like, "You also come to the wedding?" And they're like, "Yes."
Oh,
and
sweet.
so they both came to the wedding still. Mostly it was just the two of them broing out because I was in bridesmaid mode. And like my parents were there, and my parents have like, I brought both of them
I
to
wrote
Easter.
out with your dad.
So your parents are totally cool with it?
Well,
Totally is a strong word.
my mom is totally cool with it. My mom's like the most supportive person ever. My dad is just like confused and just keeps telling me every time I talk about like all my multiple partners, he's like, "Pick the richest one and just pick the richest and marry him." And I'm like,
He clearly switched to Dylan.
yeah. So, but like my dad and mom both really like Sean and Dylan, and so like my parents were at the wedding because it's my best friend since I was little.
Yeah.
And so my dad didn't even know that like I wasn't dating either of them. He just assumed I still was because they were there at the wedding.
Yeah,
So obviously
yeah.
it's normal relationships. If you break up, you don't keep.
But now I'm thinking, if you're a bridesmaid as a bride, you should give them +2s, because when you're doing bridesmaid duties, your date needs someone to keep them
Exactly.
entertained.
Oh, they were
This
totally
is like-
entertained.
Right?
No, this is
It's
like
brilliant.
even in the sphere of monogamy, like that
Yeah.
just makes so much sense.
Right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
What do you
That
do
should
all
be a
day?
rule.
Yeah,
That
it's
should be a
always like the
tradition.
worst for guys with. Yeah.
I love this. We're breaking down wedding conventions.
There you go. So how long did you guys actually date, like, completely?
Probably the three of us were all like a unit for like
Six.
six months, about 6 months or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what ended it?
It was nothing between the three of us. In fact, like I said, after we were all broken up, we hung out at that wedding. It was so much fun.
Syphilis.
Oh yeah, where'd you meet her?
I think it's interesting that like it speaks to why we worked so fluidly and so well as a triad that after breaking up we were still fully committed to A, being friends, B, showing up to things like the wedding as though there were no change in dynamic, because at the base level there wasn't really a change in dynamic. There was a change in how we approached our relationships, and there was a change in the sexual dynamic, but at its core we still didn't love each other any less.
So who initiated the breakup conversation?
Well, so it happened in individual ways.
Sean and I still haven't broken up.
Sean and Dylan are still together. Dylan and I transitioned our relationship in June, and
I like that word,
Transitioned.
transitioned. I've transitioned many relationships. All right.
Well, because for me, it's true. Because like,
Sweetheart, sit down. We need a transition.
We gotta transition our relationship.
This is the new breakup.
well, for me,
You heard
it's
it
like
here first.
Another phrase that often we'll use is like de-escalate.
Oh my god!
De-escalate?
Wait, is it a
Wow.
fucking military conflict? Like what?
you like Sean liked that one, Dylan.
De-escalate.
Yeah,
It almost sounds like you're getting like demoted from
gotta
your
go.
job or something.
I
I
sent
down.
Brian as my diplomatic representative to de-escalate our relationship.
So for me, like, even though sometimes I'll use the phrase breakup because I think people understand it more. The truth is, like, I feel like there's something implicit in breakup that, and you'll often hear anyone you talk to in the poly community, they often refer to relationships in other ways than breaking up.
Right.
Because there is less of this, like, you're my everything or you're nothing
Yep.
to me
Yep.
feeling, where, like, we respect a lot more that people sometimes are certain roles in our life and then change. And
So it's just changing dynamic
it's
of
just
your
changing-
relationship.
Yeah, and for really all it is acknowledging what's already there. That's what happened with Dylan and I. We were like, hey, we both feel like things are changing. Maybe that our needs don't need to be met in the same way they've been met, and we were totally on the same page. Like it wasn't like a fight. We were there for each other. It
It was
we
the
actually-
most amicable breakup I've ever
we
had.
went
in my
on a
life.
breakup date.
But was there something
We literally went and
that,
got tacos and we're like, "This is over, right? Cool."
But
Cool, let's eat some peach cobbler.
Did something happen, or
I think just the progression of each of our lives and the development of our needs and what we're looking for in a partner just kind of naturally drifted apart, and we came to the realization that neither one of us could fully satisfy the needs of the other in the way that we had previously been able to.
So what were some of those needs that were
Yeah.
different?
I think sort of just attention and time spent and dedication to overcoming challenges with the other. A lot of what sort of builds and strengthens a relationship, at least in my experience, is the ability to help your partner overcome the challenges that they're facing. And that's a pretty big, time and effort and not spiritual in a religious sense, but like it's a spiritual
Right.
commitment, right? Like you need to give a lot of yourself to be able to help somebody do that. And I, for a multitude of reasons, didn't feel like I was able to continue doing that in the way that I had been able to before.
but why though? Did you start seeing someone else, or
Oh no, it wasn't really a romantic thing. It was just sort of a change in mentality, a change in demands from personal life, work life. I'm going to say time was actually a big factor.
But this happens in monogamous relationships,
Sure.
and what happens most of the time is two people sit down and talk about it and say, how can we work through this? How can we compromise?
Yeah.
So in a triad relationship or a poly relationship, is this reason enough to say, let's de-escalate the relationship or transition?
I feel like for us, it was just like, hey, right now, in what we need to be in each other's lives isn't partners. We still care about each other. As you can see, we're both still affectionate
Right.
with each other. Like, I love Dylan. Dylan continues to be a part of my life. But I like to reserve the word partner for someone who holds a different level in my life, who is has
Someone handsomer, you can say it.
No, someone rich. Remember?
Oh, right, yeah, sorry.
someone richer even than you, honey.
So you bring up time. I think that's like an interesting thing. Do you think though that like just in general with poly, obviously that's an issue with time.
That's the ultimate currency of polyamory. Really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you think that's like you mentioned, it takes a lot of time to devote to really helping someone through things? Do you think in other polyamorous relationships you could have that work out and have that time, or do you think that's something that's challenging with this whole dynamic?
You know, time management is something that I'm notoriously just atrocious at.
A lot of us are.
Yeah. Good to know
one
I'm
of my
not alone.
partners shares calendars with all his partners because they're all have very busy
You
lives.
kind of have to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, like, not time like that. Like, I mean, there's obviously, like, physical time, but, like, the time, like you mentioned, Dylan, to, like, devote
Effort.
to, like, helping someone through something. Like, that type of time.
And for me, I honestly think it's more of a gift to actually, like, release that. Like, that's the thing is, like, I could tell that when Dylan and I came time to transition our relationship, I could just tell her, like, I wasn't going to fight for it because I was like, I can see you're just in a different place.
Yeah.
This isn't something
Got it.
I don't want to fight you and be like, you need to fulfill my needs. I
Right.
need this from you. I'm like, this isn't where you're currently at. I want to be able to not hold resentment because you're not giving me everything I want. I instead want to be able to hold you at a place where whatever you give me is a gift.
Right. Which is similar to monogamous relationships. That happens all the time. with
But I
people.
do feel like in a monogamous relationship, because let's say you're the only one I have, I'm going to devote all my energy and fight for this relationship.
Right.
But I guess in polyamorous relationships, you're kind of like, well, I have all these other relationships that are fulfilling different needs.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't need to, if we're in different places, we can just let that go.
Well, that was something that I didn't quite pick up on right away, but something that I eventually found very gratifying was that I was able to rest easy knowing that I didn't have to fulfill all of Jupiter's needs, and that I didn't have to be her go-to for everything, and that my role in our romantic relationship and in her life could be totally different from Sean's or anyone else's, and that the responsibilities that she came to me with were ones that I willingly accepted, and that there wasn't any responsibility or any expectation placed on me.
It's mindful. It's mindful.
It is very much, yeah.
Very
I think
much.
what you mentioned, like that's the ideal monogamous relationship, but there has been so many relationships that end because the person doesn't have time. It doesn't want to get to that level of working
Definitely.
things through. So
but in a monogamous relationship, you somewhat be judged if you said, "Oh, we changed. That my partner changed, and we decided to part ways." People would say, "Well, why didn't you fight for your relationship? Why didn't you try harder? Or why didn't you go to like couples counseling?" Right. So I guess I'm just asking if there is a need for something like that or not.
So I'll bring in Sean for this part. So I fully transitioned my relationship with Dylan, and only 2 or 3 weeks later, Sean and I had already been through one level of de-escalation in our relationship, and we fully de-escalated our relationship after that.
What's one level?
Yeah, I think Jupiter hit it on the head with their first response to this, which was that, at least in our relationship, I feel like was just communicating what we already knew to a degree. And that's what I find so different than all the monogamous relationships that I've been in before. For me, like in monogamy, what I've had happen is you kind of build up this elephant in the room, at least the elephant in my mind or in the other person's mind, which is like the doubts and questions I have about the relationship that grow and grow and grow until I finally place a voice to those. And usually when I place a voice to those, that like, makes the relationship break and fall apart because I've broken the golden vow of like the sanctity of our relationship being perfect. And I feel like with the communication skills that we developed in our poly relationship and practice, Jupiter and I did a constant check-in at first every couple weeks and then every month and maybe every month and a half. We did these check-ins where the purpose of it was for us to discuss how we felt like our relationship was going. Did we want to change it in any ways? Were there things that we wanted to work on? And we created this safe space to discuss that stuff so that when the time for a transition came up, it wasn't this total elephant in the room that was just like presented and was a blindsiding effect. I feel like we laid voice to change in the level of connection that we had. We laid voice to that. I was traveling in Europe for a bit, and when I came back from traveling in Europe, and we wanted to somewhat make it clear and official to each other that we recognize this transition and it's no longer a loose end.
So what I'm hearing is this sort of transition of relationships is sort of inevitable. So would you say a triad relationship is sustainable for the long term?
Oh, definitely.
Or do you think this breakup even had anything to do with being a triad? Because I kind of feel like
I feel like the triad probably added to the benefits of the relationship. Like, if anything, not to say like my relationship with either of them would have ended sooner, but if anything, for me personally, I got so much of a richer experience actually out of my relationship from my connection to both Sean and Dylan together. And honestly, something that I felt a bit was when Sean went traveling for a bit, I actually really missed and felt like my relationship to the two of them suffered from us not being able to have as much time together. The three of us. I actually felt like that almost added to some tension that like it kind of made it more clear. Like it was almost like being in fairy tale land, being the three of us. It was kind of magic. There was no fighting. There was something that magically dissipated. Like the three of us together, it was like just so easy. Whereas on one-on-one, like people, they have their issues with people. And I'm a big firm believer in like, I'm not there to fight for relationships till the end. I'm there to let relationships run their course. I believe that most, if not all, relationships in your life end.
I mean, they do.
Exactly. Like whether it's with death or anything else. And I'm just so happy to experience relationships to the point where no one has to be resentful. We can be like, hey, I got a lot out of this. And I think if any more, we're going to stop getting positives out of this experience. So for me, it was pretty much
end it before it gets to resentment and
and I don't think any of us have any resentment towards each other.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
Are you guys still sleeping together? Because I'm feeling like I don't know. Are you guys all sleeping together still?
I haven't actually slept with either of them. Yeah, surprisingly we haven't.
Sean and I just cuddle sometimes.
Why am I bedroom at night and cuddle him?
Why am I not invited to
Jupiter
this?
is not part of this cuddle.
Because you would sexualize it.
Jupiter, you had your point when you were the lead.
Yeah, you were the V. Remember, you were the.
You felt the need to de-escalate, and so Sean and I just took the reins from there.
The V flipped.
The V. You provide the V, and then we take the V out.
You can interpret that however you want.
2 L's? I don't know. But hold on. Sex. Let's talk about sex. Configurations. Let's get to the good part. When did the three of you guys have sex for the first time?
Valentine's Day.
Oh, really? That's romantic.
We did a triad Valentine's Day, which is incredible. Like I remember,
that's hard.
No, it was awesome. It was so good.
So I remember this conversation. I was talking to Sean. I was like, "Hey, do you want to spend Valentine's Day together?" And he was like, "Yeah, but don't you want to spend Valentine's Day with Dylan too?"
Oh,
and
that's so sweet.
I was like, "I do, but like I want to honor our relationship because this has been something that come up for Sean and I around New Year's when I barely just started seeing Dylan. Mm-hmm. Dylan had like kind of invited me to go do something with New Year's. It has a thing for Sean where he's like, hey, this is an expectation I maybe hadn't voiced, but I wanted to spend with you. So I was sensitive around Valentine's Day. I was like, okay, I want to make sure I'm like hearing your needs as my established partner. Yep. And he was like, no, like, I think that, Dylan would probably want to spend time with you. I think you want to spend time with him too. So why don't we? I was like, well, could we? Yeah, we can just do all of us.
Well, like
I remember Dylan was.
I had my level of like trepidation too because I wanted to like really make sure that I wasn't coming in and like kicking down any doors or stepping on any toes. And I wanted. I wasn't sure what our relationship, the three of us, was going to turn into.
But Sean is literally the most welcoming metamor ever.
Exactly. And so on Valentine's Day, Sean wrote me the single, like, sweetest and long and, like, heartfelt and just eloquent sort of explanation of how welcome I was in both his life and as part of like the like 3-person relationship that we were nurturing, and that's That's when I realized that I loved Sean more than Jupiter.
I think I love Sean. I love Sean too. I don't know Sean.
It was like,
Sean
it was the
deals with
sweetest
this
thing
a
I've ever
lot.
fucking seen.
The card I got from Dylan on Valentine's Day was a cutout magazine picture of some old people, and it said inside, "You're all right by me."
So they
love
obviously
your puns.
So you can see Sean and Dylan instantly fell for each other.
Got it.
So yeah,
on to the sex.
yeah, onto the
Let's get to the sex,
onto
people.
the sex.
It's been
Enough
40
with that,
minutes.
enough with that mushy stuff.
I know. We weren't even recording this whole time.
Yeah.
Now we are.
So so leading up to this night, I think from like the first time, I was like, maybe like literally the first date that we went on, I was like, so do you want to have a threesome? And Dylan had a lot of trepidations around, like he'd never had a threesome with another man there, and I would just kept being like, okay, I won't push it, but I'm pushing it. And so finally, like that night, he was like, I'm not making any promises, but it totally happened. And it was amazing because we went got dinner, and then we went to Banya again, the bathhouse, and then we went back and we were like got in bed.
I was sufficiently wooed.
Yeah, we were like cuddling, and there'd been
So were
flowers.
they just like pleasing you the whole time? Like,
Oh
how
no,
did
I
this...
put the work in.
Well, but, okay, so
Wait, what do you mean you put the work? Oh, before sex. No, I'm talking about before
no,
sex.
during sex.
No,
she
I'm
said.
saying before sex. First of all, who paid for the date? Who pays for dates?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Who paid for the dates?
Did Sean and I split it? I think
I feel like maybe you jumped on dinner. I feel like Sean paid for Banya,
that's also possible.
and
Okay.
I was just like,
Oh my god! And two men can split the expenses of the date. That's even better.
We're affordable.
Benefits of triad relationship. Okay, get to the sex.
I will get to it. Yeah, and so we ended up having we stayed at Dylan's place, which we ended up many more
Much
nights.
to the chagrin of my housemates.
That we came out one time, and like everyone was like, there was like 40 people in the house. They're like, well, y'all were having fun in there. We're like, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we had a threesome.
I remember my housemate Mike. I remember you and Sean came over one night, and I left my room and I went to the bathroom. And then you and Sean started fucking again while I was brushing my teeth. And then I walked into the living room and I was brushing my teeth, and my housemate Mike looks at me and goes, "If you're here."
What's going on in
Yeah,
there?
exactly.
So did you guys mostly like have threesomes when you were together, or was it more like you and Sean, you and Dylan? Like, how did that work?
Mostly threesomes if the three of us were all awake. But Dylan,
I napped through it.
Dylan, like,
you two would have
sleeping
sex
right
and you would
next to
just
us?
yeah, no, multiple times. One time we had to get off the bed because Dylan was like making grumpy noises because we were waking him up with her fucking. So we got off the bed.
Work
and
in the morning.
I fucked on the floor next to him.
My favorite configuration was missionary with me reading a book next to it.
I was wondering, like, what happened to the other person while you were with one guy. Now I guess we know.
Yeah. So
You're-
reading a book.
I mean, yeah, you're kind of either just like
funny.
there or you're not.
So
Well, are
it's
you
like
watching?
your turn.
Do
You're
you
No,
not
no,
watching.
I
I
would
mean, that
never-
happened one time at Sean's the place in Sausalito when we made the fort. You ever just watch?
So great. So great.
Yeah, that we were playing like psychedelic projections and crazy music, and like we were just taking turns doing all the combinations.
We built a kids fort and all put a bed inside the kids fort and basically had
Stop saying kids. Sean.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know if I want a picture of this.
Adult fort. Adult fort.
An adult fort. Okay.
Did your swords ever cross during?
Are you
any of
asking
this?
if Sean and I ever hooked up? Because no, we didn't.
Well, not intentionally, but you've got
What,
to.
are you asking if Sean and I ever accidentally hooked up? Like I tripped and like landed on his dick.
Maybe.
I think it's very clear that you guys just had a very sentimental
Jupiter-
relationship.
Emotional.
Oh yeah, Sean, what is your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, comical moments stand out. And so,
Don't. You know what? I'm totally in agreement with Sean
I
right
think
there.
I know what he might's gonna say. Are you gonna? I think I know the story you're gonna say.
yeah, should I?
Yeah, just do it. Just do it.
All right, so Dylan and I learned early on that we were both big fans of The Big Lebowski.
Okay.
And so there was this one moment where Dylan was going down on Jupiter, And if for any like listeners that are fans of The Lebowski will maybe recall the scene where I dunked Dylan's head further down into Jupiter's crotch and screamed, "Where's the money, Lebowski?"
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And then,
And then Dylan, what'd you say?
Oh fuck, I don't remember.
It's down there somewhere. That's back in there. So,
yeah.
I learned, I think, the most out of this podcast than any other I've ever heard of. So very quickly, I just want to go around because we know what Jupiter's parents think of this, thought of this relationship. Dylan, what did your parents think of, or did they know about this?
Yeah. So my dad just turned 70, and I know I love my dad too. And he is like in full support.
Wow.
He could not be any more, encouraging and supportive and curious and just like all of the things that you would want, from a parent and a mentor. And I think, he is, he fully understands that his generation is probably not fully on board with the idea of polyamory. But I don't want to speak for him, but I think on some level, he kind of would like to ideally incorporate some level of ethical non-monogamy in his day-to-day life.
Okay. It's never too late.
He's single.
Yeah.
And also, trust me,
geriatrics out there, if you're listening.
Probably the hottest 70-year-old bachelor around.
Listeners, write in if you'd like to meet Dylan's dad.
Please do. Please do.
He's a wonderful man.
We all love Dylan's
I
dad.
highly recommend
It's hard not to.
It's really hard. We like him better than Dylan.
Sean, what about your family?
My family's been, I wouldn't say as supportive as Dylan's father has been. I think it's strange. I feel like they've tried to be accepting of it, but I think it's been more complicated than that. I feel like they, kind of on the surface level understand, I've declared to them that I am polyamorous and explained what that means to me, but I think it's just not something they fully understand. I think they lived through the 70s and whatnot and basically said that, those are things that they tried when they were young, but, they, in their experience, they never saw it working out, that it was, they kind of regard it as a phase, I suppose. And that kind of, it doesn't feel great to hear that, because, how do you imagine if you're gay and you tell your parents you're gay, that they brush it off as a phase.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it adequately recognizes, the declaration you're making to them. And so, we've gone through a process together, my mom and I particularly, where I feel like it's come up a couple times, and I've tried to make the case for, respecting my sexual autonomy and tried to relate it to her similarly to, sexual orientation. And I think maybe that case helped drive it home, because I believe it's, as a lot of people do in the poly community, that polyamory is an orientation in a similar way that, sexuality is an orientation. And this is your, I guess you call it your relationship orientation. And then you also have a gendered attractiveness orientation, and those are two different axes.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit, I didn't know much about triad relationships before, and I just automatically assumed that there was, you guys were bi. Did your parents ever think that?
I think my mom secretly thinks I'm bi, for sure.
I think she totally does.
Well, I mean, I totally told her we were, so... I don't know what you were expecting out of that conversation.
Well, I think when you hear relationship, it's like
there's a lot of stereotypes around, like, and I do have a lot of friends who are like asexual and all sorts of things like that. So I guess, like, for me, I'm very much understand a lot of people have like non-sexual romantic relationships, but I think most people still assume sex and romantic relationships or sex and relationships of any kind.
And triad relationships could be that
Totally.
as well,
could be,
right?
yeah. It just doesn't have to be, is what we're learning.
Yeah. What about marriage? Do you guys believe in marriage?
I mean, I'm not opposed to marriage if I feel like it serves a function, like literally like a practical function. Otherwise, like, I'm totally in favor of like, you know, commitment ceremonies or like ways to like celebrate and recognize like relationships that like have a desire to like grow and have a foundation and all those kinds of things. But like marriage as a concept that I think like traditional society or like older society believes in, like a lot of people I think in this generation, just doesn't really resonate for me. I don't feel like the government telling me that I'm now bound to someone makes my relationship any better. So it's really only if it serves a function.
Gotcha.
Could I chime in here?
No, please,
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in the same way that, like, you know, calling someone your boyfriend or girlfriend can basically cause you in this society to inherit a set of expectations and rules that means that your relationship should have. Marriage definitely has that, right? You tell someone you're married, and they instantly make a set of expectations and assumptions about what that means, of what you're allowed to do and how you behave. And I find that, I mean, that's to me, that's like the major purpose of polyamory for me, is breaking free of those expectations. Like, I find each relationship that I have is so unique with that individual that it's almost insulting for me to just inherit some sort of societal expectations of how I should conduct that relationship. And marriage is, to me, is kind of the ultimate, most like symbolic one that is like well known throughout the world of what it means. And generally speaking, all of my relationships don't abide by the rules that are set by that. So I feel like it just is going to serve to confuse more than anything most people. But yeah, to Jupiter's point, there's some other like tax benefits, etc., that could come with it. It's just, as far as the exclusivity and all that jazz and nesting and stuff, it's just not my jam.
Okay. What about kids?
Jupiter and I have talked quite a bit about sort of the not about having our own kids, but just the philosophy of raising kids in a polyamorous environment. I think we came to and please chime in if I'm off base or misquoting you, but I think we kind of came to some common ground on the idea that much like a standard monogamous nuclear family kind of setup, like the important thing is that a child have positive and consistent and stable role models, and the number of those role models is kind of inconsequential. And if anything, being raised by a family of people,
a village,
right, as it were, could really only serve to benefit. I don't. I struggle to envision a scenario wherein there's sort of a polyamorous group, raising a child and being a consistent presence in that child's life, and that being a negative, or a force of negativity or negative influence.
Yeah. I do want to get to some takeaways, because I want our listeners to hear about what did you learn from this triad relationship, and what is some advice you could give to people who are exploring non-traditional relationships?
I took away so much. I learned so much about myself, and just about how I want to treat people and how I want people to treat me so quickly. And it was pretty overwhelming. But I guess number one would just be work within your comfort zone. Don't push yourself to do something that you're not comfortable with, but at the same time, try and push your comfort zone.
Right, because you don't know.
Right, exactly. Find what it is that you're comfortable doing, and find a setup that that works for you and benefits you to the best of your ability and your knowledge. And I think because polyamory tests people's connections and people's communication skills, and people's
Time management,
self-awareness,
Yeah.
and time management much more strongly, in my experience, than monogamous relationships. You need to make sure before you dive headfirst into a triad or some other polyamorous dynamic that you have all that shit in line, because you'll find out very quickly if you don't.
Yeah.
And it can be kind of destructive.
I actually learned a lot from Sean and Dylan as examples, because in a lot of ways I like to say I kind of had the easy position. Like I was the
without question. Is that a joke?
Oh God. Yeah, like, so it's funny because prior to this happening, I always had this anxiety in my relationship with Sean and in prior relationships that were poly that I tried to do, that I always had this big fear of like, what's going to happen when my person finds another person? What's going to happen when I have to go some of my time? How am I going to handle this? I never propositioned in my head like it would happen the other way. And that I would find another person first. And I was really lucky that Sean handled it with such grace. And
I consider myself lucky in that respect too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like, I really happened to be with someone who was able to take full ownership of their feelings, who didn't project that I was doing anything wrong, who like actually celebrated what was happening, but also acknowledged like really real feelings that were happening for them. And then to like be able to like watch how Sean handled that, and like in such a way that like I respected, and I was like, wow, I like see, it was so inspirational. And then to also see like the grace and like lack of insecurity that Dylan came in with, and that where he was able to just feel comfortable and like ride through it. I learned so much from both of them that, interestingly enough, like me now, I am now partners with two people who one is in two long-term relationships, one's in one long-term relationship for many years before they've met me. And it's my first time now being like going into relationships with people who already had these long-standing partners. And I feel like I had these amazing examples set for me of how to do that, of how to be that, and how to do it in a way that is graceful, that is respectful to people who are already in the relationships. And I think if I had not been in this exact interaction where I happen to be lucky and get to watch two people handle it like this, I might not be as successful with the relationships I'm currently in.
And you're in two separate relationships, not a triad. Okay.
And then Sean, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel grateful that and thank you, Dylan and Jupiter, for your kind words about the process of going to the relationship together. I really appreciate it, and both of you two were amazing people to do this with and learn from. I feel really grateful from the experience. I actually really preferred being in the position that I was in this relationship, because Jupiter talked about having the easy position. I actually really enjoyed having. It's hard to say which is the hardest position, but having what could be seen as a harder position of having an established relationship and then having your partner in that relationship build a new relationship. Right, you have to create a lot of space to invite someone into that. And for me, that was actually where all the growth was. So that's why I'm like actually really happy to have been in that position, even though it's harder, is because instead of me constantly having this belief, which I walked around with for several years prior to this, that I'm a very unjealous person, and I actually want my partners to be able to build other relationships. And these are all these hypotheses that I had, but I never really had it tested. I had a previous partner who had some flings with people, but she had never developed like a significant relationship on what could be considered a partner level with anyone else. And so I never really had that test. And I felt like I didn't want to get into 3 or 4 years of being polyamorous and never actually had that real test come to me to make sure that, like, yes, polyamory is right for me. And this is what this this did for me is it actually gave me that test. And so I got to walk through the emotions of bringing a new person into my life and creating space for my partner to have this person in their life. And so I guess, if I were to like suggest some, advice on this topic is, don't shy away from that at all. Like, that's the hard part, but I feel like you don't want to avoid the hard parts.
Right.
What you're doing by practicing polyamory is you have a hypothesis about how your emotions work. That you're finding a different relationship style is going to be more compatible with how you are as a person, that it's more likely to bring greater happiness into your life. I mean, that's all it is. It's not, it doesn't need to be this big statement against the rest of the world and against society and such. It can be as simple as recognizing that maybe you're a little bit different than the average person, and if your goal in life is to optimize for your happiness, then maybe a different approach than what everyone else is doing is good. And so you want to test that hypothesis. So put yourself in that difficult position. Create space for a new person to come into the life of your partner. And if that's too tough, if you try to work through that and it's just not working for you, then maybe polyamory is not right for you. But that's not to say that you should turn away at the first sign of challenge, because it takes working through this stuff to actually really get to the goal that's behind it. I described this to many friends, the relationship that I found that Jupiter, Dylan, and I had, was that it was like we were at this big crowded party, and we had suddenly discovered this secret room in it. And the secret room was like the most beautiful, like chillest, it's filled with lasers and the best music.
Everyone's doing the New York Times crossword.
And us three are getting to enjoy it ourselves, and we're just in this complete awe of that experience that we're all three collectively having. But in a way, it felt like we kind of stumbled into it. Like it wasn't so like intentional. Like we took the baby steps to get to this thing, but it was a world that we created into ourselves that we all three shared and that we grew together, that other people could only see from the outside. And I wanted to, shout to the world to say, hey, everybody, there's secret rooms all around you. Like, take the leap that you need. Like, I know that door looks really, like, thorny and tough and scary, but I'm telling you, like, there's a beautiful room on the other side.
Pull the book that says History of Anthropology.
Well, I think the notion of growth is really big, because people always say, just in general, like, relationships teach you so much about yourself, and like what you guys said, it's not that you're just measuring it by if you're still together or you're not, but just like how much all of you guys got out of this is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because we're always talking about like what's a successful relationship, and society says in a relationship that you're until you die.
Yeah,
and like
that's not.
In my opinion, it's a relationship where you're like, I learned from that.
Right.
I grew from that. Yeah. And I think that between the three of us, I learned and grew so much, more than probably any relationship.
Sounds that way, yeah.
Definitely.
And so I consider my relationship with Jupiter and Sean to probably be my most successful relationship, even though, like, in the grand scope of my life, and even so my other relationships, it didn't last nearly as long.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not really the length of time. It's a quality.
And we spent a lot of time
also like just what a relationship means. I mean, I think the dynamic between Sean and Dylan is so interesting to me, and just like how much of it, it's like people always say like your partner is like your best friend, and like there is that like platonic side to it that we like sometimes forget about. And you guys obviously had this just like platonic bromance that's like really coming out.
Still
strong bromance.
It remains strong to this day.
I have two main takeaways. One is, I think when people are in a relationship, no matter how many people are in it, as long as your goal is to hope for the best for each other, I feel like that relationship can work through anything. If the goal is to say, I want to be the best person for you, I want to provide the best for you, then basically that's just the one goal everyone's working towards. The second takeaway I have is, I think there's this notion of people who haven't had much experience with polyamory is that they think that people are unsatisfied with one person, so therefore they want to find multiple people to fill in the gaps. And what I'm hearing you guys say is, Jupiter, you met Dylan and you said, this guy in my life actually enhances my relationship with Sean, which is a very interesting thought. You know, it's not so much Sean was missing these qualities or he didn't fulfill these needs, is that by Dylan being part of our relationship, it actually made everything even better. And that's one way that people should really, you know, if you're considering polyamory, you're considering non-traditional relationships, or just with anything in life, if it enhances your life, absolutely say yes to it. Why would you say no to it? But don't approach or add or try out things where you come in with some sort of resentment about your current situation, right? Because you're starting out negative, and the person that's coming in will never be able to live up to what you're looking for.
I would say, Sean was like an amazing partner. And if anything, I was like, I'm spoiled getting another one now.
Yeah, I know. And you should have just kept going.
Oh, I just keep going. It never ends.
I mean, I think every woman that's listening is probably just envious.
I definitely just like been out with both of them in public, and I'm like, looking at people, I'm like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. The idea of taking 2 dates to a wedding excites me to no end.
It will not be my last.
All right, cool. Let's wrap this up. You guys, thank you for coming on and giving us such an honest picture of what a triad relationship
this was amazing.
I was really tempted to lie about so much stuff.
But you can't even, right?
It's because the truth is so good.
The truth is so much better. Yeah. So much better. If people were to have questions or they want advice, could they contact you guys for that?
I don't know. Like, how many listeners would you imagine would do that?
Like 100,000 at least.
100,000, cool.
We'll field those questions to you.
I can help with this a little bit. So I actually
mel.gibson@gmail.com.
So I actually run some poly events, some poly tea
what
events
a plug opportunity.
in San Francisco. And I'm also currently launching I'm part of a film collaborative that's all about sex, gender, relationships. And so I'll be leading a video series on YouTube called Poly Pillow Talk.
Awesome.
That's informal, like cozy in my bed, talks with people about real life polyamory challenges.
Amazing.
That's great.
So that will be a great resource for people that I plan to be putting out there to kind of like dispel a lot of myths about polyamory and present really real life examples.
That's amazing.
And if you ever reach out to me to do that, I'm always happy to talk about it. I make myself like the poly person on my friends' lives, and so everyone just always, random people from like high school will be like, hey, so like I'm thinking about polyamory, I know we haven't talked in 8 years, and I'm like, it's okay, bring it to me.
Okay, so listeners that write it to us will pass to Jupiter.
Jupiter's got
not to
your back.
Dylan's fake email.
No.
Dylan's too busy reading his book next to 2 people having sex, all right?
mel.gibson@gmail.com is a very well
there is
taken
actually
care of email address.
there actually is a meme of like a couple having sex and the partner next to them is literally just like petting one on the head while they're That's the meme of this.
You're doing great, honey.
Amazing.
Yeah, and Sean, I don't know, do you want to would you ever want some poly things being fed to you? Questions?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Jupiter and I, for a while, were running a poly discussion circle in San Francisco, where we brought together people to help answer a lot of these questions. So,
awesome.
Yeah, we both are really interested in building the poly community around the world, really, because we're all going to thrive better as the community grows. So, yeah, feel free to send people my way. I get the same thing that Jupiter was mentioning of just random Facebook messages of people asking about polyamory, and it's pretty hilarious actually.
Also,
love it.
Yeah. Also, Sean, you can only hear his voice, but Sean is super cute and he's always down to fuck.
Oh yeah, DTF, yes.
So is Dylan, but Sean
is just like, what about me?
Well, everyone, we all know Sean's the sluttier one. We all know that, honey.
That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Sean is DTF. And Dylan is DTF sometimes.
But he's a good book. Yeah.
You said Sean is the sluttier one like it was a delicate subject you were broaching.
Outside to head on in
To your
we wrap
threesome.
up.
You're about to go into a threesome.
Oh, Sean's about to go to threesome. Sorry, we're taking away from your
Sorry,
precious threesome time.
Sean, where are you right now? Redwood City?
Yeah.
I can be there in 45 minutes.
Text
All
the
right.
address to Dylan.
Wrap this up anyway. Listeners, you heard it here first. You can contact Sean or Jupiter on your poly questions, and if you want to read a nice book, you can contact Dylan for that. If you would like to be a guest on our show, we're constantly looking for guests, especially we're now booking for season 6, which will start in 2018. So just email us or find us on, all the social media channels. Okay, on that note, stay dateable.
Thanks, Shawnee. I love you. Have fun at your threesome.
Your action item for this week is to set expectations with the people you're dating. Communicate your needs and listen to their needs. And if you have needs that are maybe non-traditional or unconventional, it's much better to communicate it with your partner than to do it behind their back. Because sometimes you never know what he or she may be open for. Maybe a triad relationship is not out of the question. And don't forget, all week we're having an Instagram contest. Follow us on Instagram at Dateable Podcast, and for each friend that you tag in a post, it counts as an entry into the contest. And the prize is a brunch with me and Julie, where you can ask us anything you want, and brunch is on us. So enter as many times as you like by tagging a friend in our Instagram posts. If you didn't know already, in our off season, we launched a premium series called the Why Series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We've had some great feedback on how actionable these episodes are, so check it out on our website under the tab Why Series. Or you can now buy directly from iTunes Music. The most efficient way to meet new people is a combination of online and offline. 500 Brunches has your offline covered. Connect over brunch with new friends. Come alone or bring a buddy. There is always a table full of friendly faces, mimosas, and eggs Benedict. Sign up at 500brunches.com and use the code DATEABLE for a free entry. To connect with us, visit dateablepodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all under Dateable Podcast.